How is it that 1% of the population is controlling over and up to 90% of global wealth? Make it make sense. Because this 1%, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is math. At one point, 85 people once owned more wealth than 3.5 billion people. And today, that 85 has shrunk. The number has shrunk. We are now living in a world where 10 people, men, are controlling as much wealth as half the planet. They're not kings, they're not prophets, just capitalists in tailored armor, tech billionaires, oil barons, hedge fund predators, and dynastic heirs who actually treat nations like chessboards. This is a pattern. The 1% isn't just a list of names, so let's be clear. It's an operating system. Within that 1%, 10 men collectively hold more wealth than half the planet. The 1% is a web of private equity firms, banks, bankers, lobbyists, and CEOs whose only real actual religion is profit. And they write the laws that protect their empires. They fund the wars that rebuild their markets. And they own the media outlets that tells you to be mad at the poor, to be angry at the sick, to be disgusted by people that are wanting a better life. This is what that empire tells us. It's not democracy. They keep us broke, busy, and blind, distracted on devices that is full of blood, distracted with who's using which restroom, distracted with who's getting free food. Keep the 99% that provides the wealth broke, busy, and blind. Corporate feudalism. And we are the peasants, paying rent to digital gods, digital lords. It's absurd. When 5 million children die yearly from hunger, corporations are hoarding trillions of offshore tax havens, while cities drown and forests are burning. Energy conglomerates are raking in record profits from the destruction that they've contributed to causing. They are profiting from the destruction that they're responsible for causing. And why isn't the government challenging these corporations? Well, that's because these corporations own the politicians. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on or what continent they're on. They are owned. And why is this okay? Well, it's simple. Corporate feudalism made apathy, being apathetic, fashionable, tough, real, the thing to do. Keep the 99% apathetic so that they don't have the bandwidth to think about Sudan. They don't have the bandwidth the slavery happening in North Africa and East Africa. They don't have the bandwidth to really stomach what's happening in Gaza because they're too busy struggling and distracted with their homegrown and domestic tragedies around housing, around food, around jobs, never pointing the finger to the multi-billion-dollar corporations that are outsourcing jobs that should be in the community to the prisons. Let me say that again. The multi-billion-dollar corporations that are outsourcing jobs that should be in the community to privately owned prisons and detention centers. Prisons are private for a reason. They expect to make profit. And the only way to make that profit margin is to have bodies in prison, whether you belong there or not. Bodies in detention centers, whether you belong there or not. Because one thing that they have absolutely calculated and mastered is knowing the exact number of bodies at any given time that they need to have in these prisons and in these ICE facilities in order to keep the profit margin going. That profit that they are capitalizing on is the profit from the goods and the products that are being assembled or either stitched or produced in some kind of way through prison labor. They tricked everybody. They made you think apathy was the thing to do, the way to be. Taught us to envy billionaires instead of questioning them. Sold us all luxury dreams on credit. Then charge you absurd interest on your hope. You're told, work hard. Because hard work builds empire. And no empire, whether European or Arab, none of these empires were built without exploitation. dehumanization, egregious violations to humanity and to the earth. This isn't about jealousy. This is about justice. This is a wake-up call to ask the 99%, is this really okay? Why do these people have the power to manipulate our paths, to manipulate our realities as they see fit? Those 10 men running over 50% of the wealth. It's not okay. But they're banking on us being broke, busy, blind, just distracted with superficial, misplaced anger at each other over the stupidest thing ever, skin color. Make no mistake, white supremacy is real and is a result of pseudoscientists having the audacity to come up with a justification to create a society that turns a blind eye to dehumanization of melanated bodies. The higher the concentration of melanin, the more egregious the violation. And the world is numb to that because the world has been taught to see a Western God through a European lens, to see your oppressor and your God in the same image. Make that make sense. This is a world where 8 men control the destinies of billions. That is an innovation. They have enough wealth to end poverty, end homelessness, cure diseases, cure hunger, transition the planet to clean energy. But why would they do that? Their empire, their wealth, is built on the backs of the 99% who are broke, busy, and blind. They count on you being sick. They count on you being in debt. They count on you chasing wet dreams. Scarcity, fear, that's what keeps the empire running. Engineered scarcity, let's be clear, because there's plenty to go around. If everyone lived well, if everyone had a living wage and not a minimum wage, if everyone had a path to live an honest life, to make a living, to be comfortable, no one would feel superior. It kind of topples the whole concept. Because there's nothing to strive for at that point. There's only gratitude at that point. Imagine that. A world full of grateful people that are thriving and being their best selves because there's plenty to go around. Because they are living on a wage that's livable and not a wage that's a minimum. And anything beyond that, go for it. Chase your dreams and aspirations. Be ambitious. But at a minimum, no one should be homeless. No one should be denied health care. No one should be forced to decide between paying rent and feeding their children for the week. No one should have to work 4 or 5 jobs just to make ends meet. No one should have to succumb to a life of crime because education and resources, everything's been engineered out of their communities. And all they've inherited was despair. Still suffering from decades of redlining. They want all the glory and they turn their backs on the problems that they've created, the problems that they've banked on, made record profits on, and continue to, as long as the 99% that is responsible for the global wealth continue to take it on the other side. The question isn't really about who is this 1%? Who are they, right? The question is, why does the 99% allow it? That is the question that we all need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, because a revolution doesn't start in the streets. A revolution starts right here, That's where the revolution starts, because heart and head is what determines our actions, is what determines what we deem acceptable and what we demand as justice. Money only holds value because we believe it does. We've allowed a system to be perpetuated that we're all tangled in now. It's almost inescapable, but you have to start somewhere. And it starts with the heart and with the head. Ask yourself, why is it fashionably acceptable to be apathetic? Why is it okay to turn a blind eye to a fellow human that has the same basic rights and needs as anyone else born in this form? Why? They've tricked you. Meanwhile, you best believe they're breaking bread together. Everything that you see, including these conflicts, this is all staged theater. This is how they plan for their next profit. This is what they do. They keep you distracted. And they know that at the end of the day, no one will ever really read the Epstein files. No one gives a damn about consent. No one even read Project 2025, which is unfolding globally right before our eyes. Nothing here has been hidden, but for some reason, we keep making noise about the Epstein files instead of making noise about why is the 1% hoarding all of the wealth and opportunity and foundation of the planet. That's the real question. Because the Epstein files, what's that going to change? You voted this person in. We clearly See, that's not going to change anything. You don't really care about children the way that you pretend. This is just something to talk about, because if we cared about children, we cared about consent, we would care at the fundamental level where it matters from development on. But we don't. We talk about the Epstein files like we're going to do something about it. What are you going to do when you see all the names that your gut already told you was there? Nothing. So that's my point. We're asking the wrong questions, focus in the wrong areas. Why is the same one percenters running and ruining the planet? Why is the world turning a blind eye to the Arab slave trade of Africans? Why is the world turning a blind eye to strategic and continued genocide of non-European people? Make it make sense. You can't, because it's insanity. So yeah, the real question is, why do we allow 1% of the population to control, manage, distribute 99% of the wealth?